As you already probably know, I'm quite excited about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I don't know what people are expecting from Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but shortly after the reveal event, I noticed that this is likely going to be very different compared to what I was personally expecting. Now, my excitement level hasn't changed at all. In fact, I might be even more excited than I was previously. I just think that what I was expecting from the game is going to turn out to be a little bit different than the final product. I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. In fact, it sounds like what the team over at Rocksteady is going for is something super unique. When we first started getting leaks for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I thought this was going to be an action-esque game where we would play the Suicide Squad and we would try to take down various members of the Justice League. And the story, as far as we know, seems to be something along those lines, but it's the gameplay that will turn out to be different from what I was expecting, and I think the gameplay is going to subsequently surprise quite a lot of players. Considering that this is the team behind the Arkham series, I always thought that this would be a melee combat-focused system, kind of like a standard action game, with maybe a bit of third-person shootery stuff thrown in there for characters like Deadshot to complement said melee combat. It would just seem to make sense. The Arkham series was known for its incredibly awesome melee combat, and the game that people are comparing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League to is Marvel's Avengers, which is very action-y-esque. But I've been going back and I've been looking at some of the interviews and the original DC FanDome showcase, and I've noticed that it kind of sounds like, if anything, that it will be the other way around. The game sounds to be more of a shooter with melee action elements to complement the gunplay. Even the trailer is cut in such a way that suggests that gunplay is a huge part of the game. A character like King Shark, for example, is expected to be throwing around heavy objects, grappling people, breaking stuff, but instead, he has a minigun, which I'm totally down for, but it's not exactly where my mind went to initially. And this direction that they seem to be taking, you know, something closer to a shooter, I'm fine with that as well. I grew up playing shooters my entire life, so having a shooter game that is set in the world of Arkham is right up my alley. But obviously just the trailer alone is not enough to say conclusively that this game will be more of a shooter than a melee combat game. So here are some quotes from the developers. In response to a question posed by Will Arnett, exactly what kind of game is this? Sefton Hill responded, the game is a hybrid of Rocksteady's experience in bringing characters like Batman to life, that superhero empowerment combined with really powerful and awesome gunplay. If this was kind of like an action-oriented game similar to Marvel's Avengers, you would expect to hear a slightly different answer here. I don't think gunplay would be tied to the answer. Even though there is gunplay in something like Marvel's Avengers, with a character like Black Widow, gunplay isn't intrinsic to what Marvel's Avengers is, where it sounds like gunplay is very much intrinsic to what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is. Sefton Hill, talking about character progression, says, each of them, referring to the playable characters, has a richer moveset, more things you can do, and more skill required to master them than you even had with Batman. And when you combine that with the gunplay, again bringing up gunplay, you know, the awesome weapons you're developing over the course of the game combined with melee weapons you have, like Deadshot's wrist cannons, Harley's baseball bat, Shark-wielding twin cleavers. These are just paragraphs of quotes from Sefton, but they're pretty damning quotes from Sefton. I don't think any of the words he's saying here seem to point to this being anything like an action game that we've seen before. It definitely sounds more like a shooter, with the emphasis being on said gunplay, and then the melee weapons will be complementing that. Rocksteady has referred to this game as a genre-bending action-adventure shooter set in an open world, and it's difficult to say exactly what this game will end up being like once it's out there and we have actual gameplay footage of it, but at least at this very moment, I think it's fair to say that the gameplay will be significantly different from something like Marvel's Avengers, which I think is incredibly important regardless of whether or not Suicide Squad turns out to be a games of service game or not. Just setting apart Marvel's Avengers and Suicide Squad is incredibly important because of that perception of them being similar games. I think if you asked a bunch of people right now whether they were going to be similar games or not, I think the vast majority of people would just assume that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is DC's answer to Marvel's Avengers, and it might practically end up being that, but functionally I think the games are going to be incredibly different just based on the words from Sefton Hill and obviously the aesthetic that they appear to be going for. Now, the game being a shooter actually has some interesting implications. What does that mean for potential characters joining the roster in the future? Can you really have a character like Poison Ivy if she can't have a gun? I mean, you could give her a gun anyway, but Poison Ivy is not exactly a character you would initially think to have a gun. That's just an example because, of course, Poison Ivy would come with a host of other issues. For example, she's dead in the Arkhamverse, so spoilers for the Arkham series, my bad. But I mean, you could extend that to any character. It doesn't have to be Poison Ivy as an example. Can you really have a character like Killer Frost? I think you can do something with Killer Frost. If you wanted to give her a gun, there's something you can do there. Or maybe she has projectiles that are effectively like guns, but that seems like a little bit of a different direction to take. Maybe you could go with a character like Captain Cold over a character like Killer Frost, specifically because he has access to a gun. I'm not sure what the correct answer is there. All I know is that from now on, when I think about Kill the Justice League or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I'm definitely going to be thinking about it in a different way now that I have a better perception of what it's going to be, because I, along with a bunch of other people, initially assumed that this would be something like an action game, similar to what we have with Marvel's Avengers, and it doesn't appear to be that way. Let me know if this is disappointing news for you. Let me know if it's something that you were expecting. Are you excited to see something a little bit different from Rocksteady? After all, we still have something along the lines of an action-esque game or something we would normally expect from the Arkham series coming out with Gotham Knights, even though that does appear to be a little bit different. It's still kind of in a similar vein, so I don't think we're going to be clamoring for like a action-y game like we're always going to have Gotham Knights to go back to, but it's definitely something worth noting, you know? Anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe. It helps to keep up to date with future videos, and it helps me in the algorithm. But if you're not new around here, leaving a like can be just as helpful. My name's Bilbsy, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next video.